genders, male and female. 2 + 2 = 4. The earth is round. Nighttime is dark.
All right, people, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's time for another Friday Roundtable Extravaganza, and joining me are two of my faves. We've got author of Irreversible Damage and Bad Therapy, both major bestsellers, Abigail Shrier, and the breast man in all of sports and politics, and I will use that pun forever, from the Clay and Buck Show, Clay Travis. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Fantastic. Good to be here.
Clay, are you sick of that pun yet? I mean, you said breasts and boobs on CNN, and I just can't let it go.
Wild. That's been 8 years. Can you believe that's how long that's been? When I came out to your studio and you were still in LA, I can't believe it's been 8 years since that happened. And CNN may be over it, because when I said that, there were no masculine men in the Democrat Party, they left their telecast with it. I was up at the University of Chicago recently. That wasn't planned. It's just true. But maybe my ban is finally over after 8 years in the CNN wilderness.
Well, you're bigger than CNN at this point, so it actually doesn't matter either way. And Abigail, I'm
not sure that's a high standard, to be fair.
Right. Actually, that was a little bit, I was kind of insulting you there. And Abigail, before we get to it, you live in crazy Los Angeles. Would you like to give us any update on your fair city?
Oh, well, you know what Gavin Newsom's been up to. He's discovered that he doesn't want men in women's sports now, after doing nothing but celebrating it for 8 years. So, it just gets crazier.
All right, well, you're leading me. Here is clip one. And yes, so Gavin Newsom, who obviously is angling to be the Democrat nominee for 28. You guys know my feelings. He's the devil incarnate. He is a lizard man. I'm not sure he's human. I fled that state because of him. We could go on. He's doing a little reclamation project with his own podcast. My buddy Charlie Kirk went on there. And Charlie, for the record, we're going to show you a couple clips. Charlie did an absolutely bang-up job of exposing this guy. But here's clip one, Gavin on men and women's sports.
So you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate
but would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed?
All right, since everyone knows my feelings about his inauthenticity, and it's just word salad, and I don't know, maybe be sympathetic to the girls who are having the shit kicked out of them by the boys in all of the sports and all that. Abigail, this is actually, this is your expertise. This is what Irreversible Damage, well, this is what both of your books were about. You are a great mother, and I know your kids, and it's like, man, this guy, come on.
I mean, this is rich. After making California into a sanctuary state, so LGBTQ minors could run away from home and run to LGBTQ youth centers where, yes, trafficking has occurred. They were liberating themselves from loving parents in this way, thanks to Gavin Newsom. We had men self-IDing into women's prisons and abusing women. That's still ongoing, thanks to Gavin Newsom. We have, he decriminalized loitering with the intent to engage in prostitution. So human trafficking has skyrocketed in the state. He stopped, just last year, he stopped schools from informing parents when teachers had transitioned their daughters. That was another bill from last year. He amended our sex offender registry so that 24-year-olds could now engage in anal and oral sex with 14-year-olds without ending up on that registry. Again, thanks to Gavin Newsom. And he decriminalized intentionally exposing your sexual partner to HIV. That's decriminalized under Gavin Newsom. So, this guy is really as phony as they come. And unfortunately, he's done a great deal of damage.
Clay, I started with Abigail there because I knew she could do the bullet points of Gavin Newsom evil. But can you just talk about the thing that he does with this fake empathy thing, the way he presents everything, that somehow he's just a nice man dealing with these difficult issues while he ushers in all of the things that Abigail just laid out?
Yeah, I always just look at this as the litmus test for crazy. And let me kind of step back before we get into men versus women in athletics, which I think everybody knows is crazy. I don't know if you've started the youth coaching circuit yet, Dave, but I'm
Not
sure.
yet, but I will.
Okay. So I've been through it. I'm sure Abigail has been through it, whether it's soccer, basketball, baseball, flag football. I have coached everything. Let me tell you what happened just a couple of years ago. So one of the ways that you kind of graduate from boyhood to adolescence is there's a 12U baseball tournament. It's awesome. Cooperstown, New York. Your team can go. It's really extraordinary. If you're a baseball fan, you can go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I had to bring, and this is a perfect dad screw up, I had to bring an actual copy of my son's birth certificate because in Little League sports, once you start to get a mustache, those kids dominate, right? Puberty makes a huge difference. Anyone who has ever played, you look at a kid and you're like, there's no way that kid is 12. He's got a mustache. He's driving a Mustang. And so to bring the actual birth certificate to Cooperstown, New York. I lost the actual birth certificate, as dads often do. My wife was not happy with me, but that's how much of competitive fairness is embedded in something as simple as what's the difference between 12 and 13 and 14-year-old boys when it comes to their ability to dominate at that level. And some dads and moms are willing to cheat historically. So you have to bring an actual physical copy of your child's birth certificate to be able to compete. Every parent there, if a 14-year-old competed, would lose their mind and would say this is completely unacceptable. You know what's far more unacceptable? A man being able to compete in women's athletics. Everybody knows this. Anyone, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, who has ever competed in athletics on any level knows that this is the reason why men's and women's athletics are separate. This is not a shot at women's athletes. I love all competition. Best man or best woman can win. But men are bigger, stronger, and faster than women. And so, Dave, to me, I started off, as you know, as just a guy who loves sports and wanted to talk about how awesome it is. That's why I founded Outkick. And this became the litmus test for crazy. Were you willing to publicly say men who identify as women shouldn't be able to compete? No Democrats were. Almost no one in all of sports media. I've gotten ripped to shreds by other sports media members for this. And suddenly, out of nowhere, after only 2 Democrats in the House, after 0 in the Senate, Gavin Newsom just decides to cannonball in on his first ever podcast and say, hey, you know what? It is deeply unfair. Yeah, no doubt. But what is the play here? I just don't trust Gavin Newsom at all. But I do understand that he recognizes Democrats are on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue, and it destroys them with any male voter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's the fake empathy. Everyone gets that. If you want to have empathy here, you would have empathy for the girls who are being beaten by the boys. That's where the empathy should lie. You can have empathy for a young child who's confused about their gender identity, and there can be discussions about that, but that doesn't mean you put them in with the girls or whatever. But you're totally right. What he's trying to do is now lead them back after he led them the other way. Here's Gavin on transgenders. This is from a couple months ago, just to show you the flip.
Gender issue came up. Why should parents not know if their kids are transitioning at school?
It's a hell of a thing. You're talking about 1% of the population. Climate change, its impact 100% of the population wasn't even brought up, and we're talking about trans issues.
Here in California, this is an issue for you.
It's a big issue for parents. This is a front and center issue.
Why should parents not know?
This is one of the greatest distractions, and it's classic 1% of the population in the United States. These kids just want to live. On Trans Day of Visibility, we celebrate the trans individuals in our communities and recognize their struggles for recognition and increasingly survival in the face of unfathomable hate which leads them to often feel unsafe or like they don't belong.
And we also celebrate the many contributions that they've made. We've had trans leaders at the forefront of progress in every field imaginable, from STEM to the arts to human rights advocacy to so much more.
All across the country, we're seeing a rise in legal, political, and physical attacks on those in the trans community.
And it's just appalling and unconscionable, this discrimination, and it's gone on for far too long.
Look, at the end of the day, everyone wants and deserves to be respected, connected, and protected. Our trans community deserves no less. So Jen and I wanted to add our voices and our support to the millions of people celebrating today.
Abigail, there's a couple things there. I mean, first off, the way he purposely conflates this with climate change, implying that you can only pick one thing to care about. That's one thing. But this other idea that he's constantly moving the ball, that he's out there promoting these bad ideas and then pretending he has nothing to do with them.
He's not just promoting them, he's writing them into law. Let me give you another law that ought to scare every parent. When your child hits the age of 12 in the state of California, thanks again to Gavin Newsom, you no longer have access to their medical records without their permission. And if a child decides to seek inpatient treatment in a mental health care, including an LGBTQ facility, you've lost her. You have no shot of intervening. I know parents who have lost their kids to this. It's extremely hard to get your kid back out of one of these youth shelters once they have liberated themselves from you. So the problem here is that I think a lot of Democrats are going to who do what Gavin Newsom just did, try to rehabilitate their image, and it's effective. The problem is if they don't change their policies, they're going to be just as damaging, and I very much worry about that. His track record is awful.
Clay, the question that the interviewer asked at the top of that clip was, why would you allow children to hide this information? Why would the school be allowed to hide information from the parents? And that's where his deflection came in. You're a dad. Let's say you found out that one of your sons was being called Nancy at school for 6 months and you didn't know. What would your reaction be?
I'd be furious. And look, the entire purpose of having my, age of majority and age of minority laws is because we recognize that kids who are under 18 often make awful choices and awful decisions. That's why on my programs, I've been talking about this a lot. You know what my wife would do? Spring break is next week. I'm going to be out with my kids in California and in Colorado. If I took one of my kids to go get a tattoo, my wife would murder me. She would. I've been physically, she would murder me. And you know what? If I did it in Tennessee for like my 14-year-old, I would actually be criminally prosecuted because we say like, hey, that barbed wire tattoo that you got when you were 14 around your bicep, which was super cool when Pamela Anderson used to do it back in the day, right? It may not age that well. So we at least are asking that you wait to get permanent tattoos, which can exist on your body for a long time until you're after the age of 18. And if you're a parent who facilitates that in any way, you can actually be prosecuted over this. Think about this. You're allowed in some states now to, and I can't believe this is real, but I do think it's important for parents to realize it, to have surgeries given to your kid, which could permanently sterilize them when they are 14 or 15 years old. And in many of those same states, you're not allowed to go take them to get a tattoo. The entire point of parenting is, hey, let's try to keep our kids from making disastrous, life-altering decisions when they are too young to understand and comprehend the full consequences of those. And for the trans issue, it's like in many states that entire theory of basis doesn't exist anymore.
You guys will love this. So Luke, who's 2 years old right now, when we feed Clyde, our dog, we just throw the food in the backyard and Clyde goes over. We don't put it in a bowl. We just throw it out there. And Luke lately has been going out there and trying to grab his food and eat it. And I kept saying to Luke, what are you doing? Are you a little boy or are you a dog? And he'll put food in his mouth, which then I have to grab out of his mouth. But he'll go, dog, I'm a dog. Yeah. But he's smiling at me because he knows he's not a dog. But if I suddenly was like, oh, you're a dog, we should send you to the kennel, Well, you get the point. Let's get to some of the mainstream media coverage on the podcast because it's kind of interesting. Take a look at this.
Also tonight, one of the biggest names in the Democratic Party is making a surprising break with the rest of Dems tonight on one of the country's most hot-button issues. California Governor Gavin Newsom criticizing transgender athletes who participate in women's sports during the debut episode of his new podcast. Listen to this.
I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit.
And back here in California, new at noon, Governor Gavin Newsom facing backlash over comments made on his new podcast. The debut episode featured Charlie Kirk, who leads a conservative organization called Turning Point USA. Now, during the 75-minute conversation, the governor suggested Democrats were in the wrong by allowing transgender athletes to participate in female sports. Well, California's legislative LGBTQ caucus blasted the governor's comments, writing in a statement, quote, "Sometimes Gavin Newsom goes for the profile and courage, sometimes not." We woke up profoundly sickened and frustrated by these remarks.
Abigail, I just love this. I love this because this, to me, is the end of every Godzilla movie. Godzilla's fighting Mothra, and an old Japanese man comes out with a tear in his eye and says, "Let them fight." And it's like, you know what? Have at it, people.
I mean, to be honest, I think this was a huge win for Gavin Newsom. It was a savvy move. He got all the right people to attack him. He brought Charlie Kirk onto his show to do it. And I have to say, beware Greeks bearing gifts. I think this was unfortunately, a very good move for Gavin. And a man with his policy track record is someone we should be very concerned about.
Clay, to that point, I mean, when you see local news covering it and the way they're angling it, I mean, does it even matter anymore? Like that he's gonna lead them out? It just seems obvious. He's gonna lead some sliver of the left out of the craziness, even though we're all agreeing it's not authentic.
It felt to me like Gavin Newsom's people sent this to the New York Times and MSNBC and CNN, their PR team, because they wanted it covered. I was stunned by how quickly this spread. And it reminds me, guys, I'm going to go old school on you. Do you remember his sister Solja, I think was how you pronounced her name? Back in 1992, after Democrats had gotten whipped in 80, 84, 88, Bill Clinton kind of repudiated gangster rap and the idea that police should be victims. And I went back and read all about it, May of 1992. And it was the sign that Bill Clinton was the new Democrat. And Clinton basically today would be considered a conservative Republican, frankly, with much of what he said and did and in office. And it felt to me like, whatever the math is, 40 some odd years later, Gavin Newsom is trying to do a version of that, right? That we've got a pivot underway. And he's recognized how crazy Democrats have gone, and that repudiating the far left wing of his party on a sports-related issue that is 80-20 nationwide is actually very calculated, and he wanted all the attention and all the blowback that he got, because it felt like to me this was, in his first ever podcast, broadcast largely by him and his team to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, that's exactly why he's starting a podcast, and we've just got 2 more clips of this. I promise you that's it. I know we're bludgeoning some of you people, and you've got it on mute, but just bear with us. But here he is admitting that the landscape, that the media landscape has completely changed. I don't think he gets exactly why it changed, but take a look at this.
I think you talked about it the other day. A lot of folks were talking about that Carville article where he talked about
roll over and play dead.
Roll over. In essence, he said that. I think it was a strategic retreat, right? That we need to come back. Trump's starting to implode. His numbers are getting soft. This was even before the tariff issues, et cetera. And then come back and strike when hot. And I immediately, no BS, thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, owning this space, every day getting a convert, every day picking up 1, 2, 10,000 folks, continuing the momentum, coming out of this damn election. And then I'm thinking about, we're going to stand back and watch you run circles around us for 6 months, the next 2 or 3 years, waiting for the moment to finally strike. Struck me as not necessarily the best advice, and it's not a knock on Carville, who I have deep respect for. What's your thoughts?
That's okay. So I don't have to. He's right about one thing in the last 40 years. It's economy is stupid, and boy, he spent down that one line pretty amazingly. Yeah, I hope you guys retreat.
Yeah, you kind of like the
more
advice.
for us.
You like
I mean,
the advice.
there's no opposition. There's no activist spark. You guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos? What are the ones that
I
are
don't know,
most
this
cringy?
like harmonious thing of like 22 senators all saying the same
Oh, you
thing.
didn't like that, yeah.
I didn't like it. I
What
mean,
do you-
go
what do
ahead.
you-
Go do more of that.
What do you do?
Please.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some
Get
advice.
better ideas, Governor.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's giving him the playbook, which I suppose is kind of nice of Charlie. But everything about him, Phoenix just said, my producer just said, that his body language is inauthentic. Everything about him, Clay, it's just incredible.
Well, I think that's the Democrats' biggest issue. I tell my team at Outkick there are 4 things that work on the internet: smart, original, funny, and authentic. Sofa, right? And you can't beat it. If you got all 4 things, you're going to have a grand slam, you're going to have a home run. But if what you're producing on the internet doesn't have at least one of those 4, you're in trouble. And I actually see this, for instance, a connection with Joy Reid. You know this, Dave, because you came out of the muck of the internet. We're like, we were born.
I was Bane. I was born in it.
That's right. You have to fight your way against all media to create an audience when you're competing on the internet. Back in the day, these people were just gifted.
Yes.
Hey, you're one of the 3 shows that's on in cable news, and you're only competing against 3 people. And I think what the Democrats got used to was their ideas were automatically given credence because of the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN. And they didn't have to actually compete in the marketplace of ideas. Whereas you, me, Abigail, we don't have the benefit of a huge PR campaign behind us. We have to win on our own. And I think what Gavin Newsom is coming to realize, and I thought he got exposed by Ron DeSantis in that Sean Hannity argument. We all know the arguments of the left. We are well versed in them. We could probably make them better than Gavin Newsom could. A lot of them don't understand our arguments because they've never had to compete in the marketplace of ideas. And it's made them flabby. It's made them unable to realize what actually connects. And frankly, I think it's made them huge dorks. We don't talk enough about just what losers they look like. This is not the table of kids you want to sit with in a high school cafeteria, right? They're boring. They're lecturing. They're hectoring you. They're the school marms. And it doesn't surprise me that they fail on the internet because they don't know how to be normal.
We have several clips of them being dorks and weirdos that we're going to get to in just a moment. But Abigail, I'm going to show you, we cut this clip. We made it shorter because people can only take so much of Gavin Newsom this early in the day. This was Charlie's best moment because look how slyly he just stabbed him. It's wonderful.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is
You canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point.
Like, that's just good work. It's sly. He just slid it in. Abigail, I mean, again, you're in LA where I fled because of what they were doing with all the lockdowns and school closures and all of those things. But even that right there, he was like, my kid couldn't come see you, Charlie, because he was basically saying, oh, my son's a fan of yours, but he couldn't come today because he has to go to school. Same guy who kept kids out of school for literally 2 years.
Yeah, this man, what he has done to families, what he has done to kids is really something that should disqualify him from ever being part of public life again as a representative. Unfortunately, a lot of things are won on PR battles. And right now he's figuring out how to sell himself to the American public. And I do think Gavin Newsom is beginning a good job, unfortunately, of trying to rehabilitate his image. And the problem is the image was not the problem. The problem is the policies. And I expect them to continue. He's a real diehard when it comes to this. He's responsible for some of the worst legislation we have. So unfortunately, I don't think it was a great day for those who oppose his policies.
Well, I will end this segment on Lizard Man with some breaking news, which is that my team is now in touch with his team. Communication has gone both ways. And I am more than happy to do the podcast as long as it is 100% unedited. I would prefer it be live, but we will see what happens. So stay tuned on that. And in honor of your dorks and dweebs, we've got a couple clips for you coming up in a second, Clay. But first, an ad from Berna. Freedom and security are the cornerstones of the American way, and that's why I've partnered with Berna, a Fort Wayne, Indiana-based company that embodies these values. Berna's commitment to safety is deeply personal. As a passionate advocate for the Second Amendment, I understand the importance of self-defense. That's why I stand behind Berna's less lethal launchers. They're effective, easy to use, and legal in all 50 states. With no background checks required and direct shipping to your doorstep, Berna Less Lethal makes safety accessible to everyone. Whether you're protecting your home or your loved ones, Berna's powerful, less lethal kinetic and tear gas ammunition can incapacitate attackers for up to 30 minutes, giving you the means to defend yourself without the legal ramifications of taking a life. Join me in supporting the American company committed to ensuring peace of mind for all. Don't wait until it's too late. Make the smart choice today. Visit Berna.com/Rubin to receive 10% off my curated Berna bundles. Clay, I believe you said the word cringe. Here is example 32B. All right. You know, I give Jasmine Crockett a lot of shit on this show for her fake eyebrows and everything else, but she's got a good bounce. You know what I mean? You got to give her something there. Clay, I mean, this is them. They cannot be authentic. A man who is orange, who is a billionaire with that kind of hair is more authentic than all of them. And that's what's driving them crazy.
Yeah, and look, they're hemorrhaging young men. I've got 3 boys, and so there are always kids coming through my house. I got a 16.
Do they all have mustaches, or just the youngest one?
Well, they're not allowed to have facial hair, the 2 oldest, but I kid them a lot about the mustache growing in. I mean, the first time when it happens. But all of their friends and everybody that is around them, all races, they overwhelmingly support Trump, and they see, this is one thing where I do think Gavin Newsom is right, and I think Charlie Kirk has been skilled, and I think the Trump digital team has. I think a site like Outkick has made a difference. I think Barstool has made a difference. They just see the Democrat Party as profoundly feminine in nature, and even that Choose Your Fighter video, I'm sure you saw Tim Walz freeze when he was asked, hey, who is the face of the Democrat Party right now? Dave, I don't know if you saw me tweet this, but Tim Walz is the man that a middle-aged lesbian would pick to try to appeal to other men, right? Like it is, and that's no shot at middle-aged lesbians. I'm sure Tim Walz is like their.
We're not going to do that on this show. We are not going to take shots at middle-aged lesbians, all right?
But you look at this, and they've just lost the ability to have a normal conversation with young men and men in general, and they're hemorrhaging white, black, Asian, Hispanic. This is overwhelmingly. And Dave, what I saw that I thought was so great about Tuesday's address for Trump showed a great deal of empathy. I think if you're a suburban mom and you just happened to watch that and you had heard from MSNBC and the New York Times for 10 years that Donald Trump was Hitler, and then he's shouting out Laken Riley's mom and sister and Peyton McNabb, who had the injury during the volleyball match, and the 95-year-old mom's getting her Russian captive son back. All of these things are incredibly empathetic and normal, and Democrats have lost the ability to just be human. And it comes back to their inability to connect on the internet. I think, again, because they had all of these media outlets that artificially inflated them for so long, they don't know how to actually compete in a true open marketplace, and it shows.
Yeah, I think this is what's happening. You know, Piers Morgan, I'm sure, well, I know, Clay, you've been on there for sure. Abigail, you've been on there, right? I think you've been on there as well, if I'm not mistaken. Abigail, you've been on Piers?
I have not.
You haven't been on Piers. So, you know, Piers does these big panel shows, and what's interesting about them, and I've talked to him about this privately, it's like, and this is not out of school to say, the problem is that, you're right, Clay, we know their arguments better than them, so they can't get lefties other than sort of hysterical, kind of old socialists or children. So to that point, this video is making the rounds. This is Harry Sisson, who is this, 18-year-old or so kid, and Chris Mowrey, another one of them, who are sort of the faces of the young Democrats. And tell me how authentic and thoughtful this is.
Trump's State of the Union speeches tonight. It's not a real State of the Union, but we're opposing him, Elon Musk, and all their insanity.
Hanging out.
Good.
It's a good time fighting for the country, which is good.
Trying.
I have some Jordan 4s on right now. Looking, I can't lie, looking fresh as fuck. Harry.
I got some normal dress shoes on, man. This guy's like.
No, you look fresh, man. You look fresh.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But we're not really doing anything right now. We're just gonna post it up. Honestly, I've been looking at these hauls, and it makes me really sad because I realize like January 6th insurrectionists were like raiding this stuff. So
they're horrible people.
I concur.
Abigail, I have no doubt that you don't really just want to own two 18-year-olds, but like this sort of, who do they think that's resonating with? I get it that they're getting TikTok likes. We don't know if those are real or not, but who do they think this is really resonating with? And the fact that the Dems are all over these guys. I mean, they were inviting them to the White House while Biden was still there. It shows you how thin the bench is at this point.
Look, you're absolutely right. Clay's absolutely right. Look, for the first time in a very long time, the right is cool. Okay, this is a unbelievable moment in history. But it won't last on its own very long. I don't think. I mean, it's true. They're never tested because they're never in the Wild West of the podcast world, which is what I had to go on when I wrote my first book because no one else would take me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
And so you get tested in a way that they have not been. But I do think, remember, they have the worst policies. They have the worst values. And I do think they'll figure out the PR piece real quick. So I don't think the advantage that the right currently enjoys is so big that we think that, that they can't figure out how to do a podcast and appear authentic in relatively short time. I'll just say one last thing, and that is I do believe conservatives to some extent were protected because they were so uncool. And here's what I mean. They didn't have people like Russell Brand glomming onto them and becoming exponents for the right because they were so uncool. So you had people actually with conservative values speaking for the right. Right now, we don't have that. We have everyone trying to glom onto and speak for this MAGA movement. And I think that ultimately could be a problem. And I'll just offer one quick stat. Young men overwhelmingly vote. That's exactly right. They had a lot more enthusiasm for Trump. But if you look at their values in response to surveys, they very often had values of Democrats. So the question is, yes, they voted for Trump, but will that continue? I don't know.
That's an absolutely great point, and I've been talking about it a lot, and it's why I want this wide 10 thing to hold. I think it's what brings people like the three of us together. And Abigail, when were you first on my show? When did Irreversible Damage come out? What year was
2020.
That? So that was 2020. And I remember you even saying to me before we sat down, which was the first time that we met, that you could not get on any left-leaning or mainstream media shows. And Clay, you've been through that. I've been through that. That's what unites us. Let me throw to one other video of this kid. So this is Chris Mowrey, who was one of the kids we just showed you, with Cory Booker. And I don't even know what's going on here. I'm pretty sure this video is going to have to be deleted from the internet.
People feel angry, and they feel angry into the void. They feel like no one's hearing their anger. Yes. And it's frustrating. You sat there for 2 hours. I'm tired. I assume you're tired.
No, you know what's so funny?
He said, I'm not tired. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
I am charged up.
I like that.
Yeah, seriously, I'm charged up.
I like
this guy should not. They want to overwhelm you. They want to
well,
paralyze
that's the
you.
goal.
They want to.
All right, we came back from it early because it's just creepy and weird. Clay, what's happening there?
Well, I think this is the problem, right? Everybody competes in an open marketplace, and you have to be smart, original, funny, or authentic. And oftentimes these guys are none of those things. First of all, when you're 18 years old, I'm going to be honest, if you are super obsessed with a joint address to Congress, you're kind of a loser.
Right.
I mean, seriously, like there should be way more fun things for you to be focused on. I'm not saying you can't and shouldn't care about the larger context of the country, but like if you're in the halls of Congress saying, I just feel so sad to be here right now because it reminds me of January 6th, like, aren't there pretty girls, or if you're gay, good-looking boys for you to be chasing around? Aren't there
How about
way
Fortnite?
more entertaining
Fortnite,
things to
man.
do? Yeah, right. Like like this is not what people aspire to be. As you age, yes, okay, get involved in the political space. But I think one reason Democrats have a hard time, think about this, to your point on the Big Tent, it's like most of the so-called manosphere is actually comedians making jokes, and occasionally Trump comes up. It's like Jake Paul and Logan Paul wanting to get in boxing matches, and occasionally politics might come up. It's a UFC fight where everybody cheers when Trump walks in, but then they're like, okay, let's go back and watch these guys beat the crap out of each other in the octagon. The politics isn't the central tenet of what they're doing. It's just a part of the larger ecosystem. Democrats seem to think that what people want is the hardcore politics. It's just kind of common sense. And Trump has parachuted into the conversation as common sense. Then he leaves and the conversation continues. It's the difference between like frosting on the cake and it being the cake itself. And Democrats, again, because they haven't had to compete on the internet, don't really understand that. This is a fun show. You do a fun show, Dave. We don't always win, right? We try to do fun shows and be entertaining. If I'm walking around like this is the hall where January 6th occurred, it just utterly devastates me. There's no 18-year-old who's like, oh, this kid speaks to me so perfectly. That's what I'm thinking about in my free time. They're Snapchatting nudes to each other and trying to pick up girls or guys or whatever else. That's the reality, whether you agree or disagree with it.
You know, they're 18 and that's what they're doing. Meanwhile, we went to Congress a couple weeks ago. I'm 48. All I wanted to do, and we damn well did it, was walk by Eric Swalwell's office and edit in a farting sound. So it's like, who's winning here? Abigail, do you have any final thoughts on these children and their assault on our sanity?
If we're talking about which children, are we talking about Gavin Newsom or are we talking about?
However you want to end it. I was talking about those 18-year-olds, but if you want to finish with
those
Gavin.
18-year-olds. I think for a moment that the Republicans are very far ahead. There's no question. And I think that Trump's team seems to be getting to work to put into place important policies and important changes. And the clock's ticking. So, I'm glad that the administration has chosen to make some of these moves quickly.
Let's talk about 1775 coffee for just a moment, and then we will try to do other ridiculous things. Did you know that drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee daily can lower your risk of death by 29% and nearly halve your chances of heart complications? But let's be real. What's the point if your coffee tastes like it was brewed by someone who thinks soy lattes are the peak of sophistication? Enter 1775 coffee. Hand-picked Bolivian beans roasted in the USA, delivering pure, single-origin brilliance. No gimmicks, no deceit, just coffee for those who crave truth, depth, and the clarity to cut through life's illusions. The best part? Every dollar you spend gets you entered to win a blacked-out 2024 Tesla Cybertruck, a modern-day Ark built for any of life's challenges, plus 30 grand in cash. Not bad. Here's what to do. Go to 1775coffee.com, stock up, and fuel your mornings with rebellion. Use code Rubin for 15% off your order. Don't miss your shot to sip bold, authentic coffee and drive a Cybertruck with $30K in your pocket. 1775coffee.com. Fuel your mornings. Forge your path. So, another thing that lines the three of us from kind of different walks of life, something that lines us up together is post-COVID and what happened to the world and how crazy everyone went. And Abigail, I keep saying it not to insult you, you do live in Los Angeles. Clay, you live in Nashville. I almost moved there. I do live in Miami now. But the big divide in the country right now seems to be how some of these cities operate. Byron Donalds, who just about a week ago announced he's going to run for Florida governor when DeSantis' term is up, he was pretty critical of some of the blue state mayors. Take a look.
Mayor Johnston, coming back to you, how much did your city spend on illegal immigration? Do you have a round number?
Over the last couple of years on all newcomers, whatever their status was, it's around $79 million since 2022.
$79 million. Mayor Johnson, Chicago. How much has the city of Chicago spent on illegal immigration?
If you're referring to the 2022 up to 2024 of the buses coming from Texas, roughly the same percentage of the state of Texas, about 1% of our overall budget.
What is that? Because we don't have the city's budget in front of me. Numbers.
It's 1%, and if you want the actual calculation, we can make sure someone...
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you?
It's 1% of the overall budget over the last 4 years.
That's why you're a failing mayor.
Which is
Mayor
the same
Adams,
number that was sent from us from the state of Texas.
How much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration? Mayor Johnson, I already asked you, you don't have a hard number. And if you don't have a hard number, you're not running your city well. Mayor Adams, how much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration?
$6.9 billion of taxpayers'
$6.9 billion of taxpayer money on a problem that was fostered on the American people. Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city
You don't
services,
ask
so
about
we
how
don't
much
have
money
that
the city
number.
of Boston has spent on illegal immigration.
We
Are
don't
you out of your
distinguish
mind?
between immigration status.
Do you
as
manage
part
your
of our
budget
city
or not,
policies.
Mayor
That
Wu?
is how we keep
Mayor
our city
Wu,
safe.
do you manage
we
your
have
budget or
the
not?
numbers to prove it. I manage my budget. I have a AAA bond rating dating back 10 years.
So to the
city
of Boston,
budget.
just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
The city
of
of Boston
the city of
is
Boston.
sick.
All right, so first off, golf clap to Byron right there, and that's why I'm a proud Floridian, even though he's not my congressman personally. The best part of that was when he's going to Mayor Johnson from Chicago, and he's like, "It's 1%, but you'd have to figure out the calculation." It's like, dude, 1%? Okay, what's the number? What's the budget? Clay, I'm not a mathematician, but I probably could have figured it out on the fly.
That's probably why Brandon Johnson has a 6% approval rating in Chicago. You know, they went from Lori Lightfoot to Brandon Johnson and somehow got worse on their mayoral selection.
Yeah.
And I do think as you watch all of those individuals, this is the downside of not having competition, right? Democrats have basically decided inside of cities, we won't even consider Republican arguments. And as a result, I think every city resident gets a worse outcome. You know, the entire purpose of competition is, in theory, it makes everybody stronger. But when you don't allow it to occur, you actually end up with far worse outcomes, right? And so I think the Democrat brand delivers such awfulness that a part of me wonders, when is the Rudy Giuliani of Chicago or LA or Boston or New York City going to rise up again and just deliver competence for all the people? I guess it hasn't gotten bad enough yet.
Right. Well, there's a double problem. It's like, what is rock bottom? That's, no one ever knows that. And when it gets to that point, it might actually be too late. And then the other problem is so many people have fled that finding that Rudy Giuliani, he probably lives in Nashville or Miami now. So that's a bit of an issue. Abigail, you know, my friend Gad Sad is writing a new book on suicidal empathy. And when I was watching that clip, that's what was ringing in my head, because it's like the four of them, if you took them, they all really still, despite all the crime, all the drugs, all the mayhem, all the stealing of the taxpayer dollars to go to people who don't deserve it, they still think they're the good guys. And that's similar to what we started with Gavin.
You know, that's exactly right. I mean, some of these people absolutely are such ideologues. They're so dyed in the wool. I mean, Clay was mentioning, these super majorities. We have one in California. So that moderate Democrats are completely ignored in California because we have a Democratic supermajority in the state assembly. So, it's a huge problem. I would just say long-term strategically, the Trump administration is going in. I think this is a really popular move, what Musk is doing, worrying about cleaning up government waste and fraud. The question is long-term, when the Republicans have gone in and cleaned up the problems, will the Republicans keep getting elected? And it's a question, because if they fix all the problems, now you can vote in the Democrats again. Right. And I think that has to be a strategic consideration.
Right there. That's like the never-ending story of politics. But let's stick with Boston for a minute, because Michelle Wu, in some ways, is the worst of all of them. It's very easy to joke about LA and San Francisco and New York, but Michelle Wu up in Boston is just absolutely staggeringly horrible. Watch this.
You belong here. This is your home. Boston es tu hogar. Boston, 这里卡有，这是你的家. This is our city. We are the safest major city in the nation because we are safe for everyone.
Respectfully, Congressman, you could pass bipartisan legislation, and that would be comprehensive immigration law. The false narrative is that immigrants in general are criminals, or immigrants in general cause all sorts of danger and harm. That is actually what is undermining safety in our communities. If you wanted to make us safe, pass gun reforms. Stop cutting Medicaid. Stop cutting cancer research. Stop cutting funds for veterans. That is what will make our city safe.
Clay, I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm not going to say what I think, so it's all yours.
Look, I think the challenge with people like Mayor Wu is they don't ever get pressed on a question that I think is a very valid one. Now, thankfully, the southern border is shut down, but how many people does Mayor Wu think we should welcome in the United States? I mean, there are 7 billion-ish people around the world. The vast majority of them would do whatever it takes to be Americans. We are incredibly fortunate to have been born in this country or to have become a citizen of this country. Should we take 1 billion poor people from around the world? What is the number that Mayor Wu? And I also think this is emblematic. Remember, it didn't take very long for Martha's Vineyard to say, oh, the number is too high, right? It was like 50 people landed in Martha's Vineyard and they called a state of emergency and they had to bring in the state guard and everything else. I think Boston is a little bit protected because it's so far from the southern border, because frankly, the winter is so cold that they don't get the influx of illegal immigrants that other states and other cities do. And so as a result, they can sit up there and they can lecture the rest of the country. But I would ask Mayor Wu, okay, you believe that America should be the shining city on a hill and that every immigrant should see that light illegally and come into this country. What would be too many? When would the number to you reach a level where it is contributing in a significant way to a decline in quality of life for American citizens? I've never heard her ask that question. I would love to know at what point would she say, okay, enough's enough.
You know, I bring this up all the time, but for years, Jordan Peterson was going to D.C. trying to ask Democrats, when does the left go too far? And he said he never got an answer. Not one Democrat could ever answer it, and that's exactly the point you're bringing up. By the way, Barack Obama has 30 acres on the water in Martha's Vineyard. So A, he's not worried about climate change, and B, I'm pretty sure you could fit 50 people on 30 acres.
Hey, by the way, that's a fabulous property he bought. I think he got a good deal. I'm a capitalist. I think that was actually a solid choice by him.
Somehow his chef, who was a former swimmer, died in 2 feet of water outside of his house.
It is very, very suspicious. I know that we didn't talk a lot about that when it happened, but it is very strange.
Abigail, let me show you this other clip. So this is Paulina Luna, who is now, to your point earlier about how Republicans fix things, then Democrats Democrats screw it up, Republicans fix, and then we end up in this cycle. Well, now she's referring the 4 people we just showed, those mayors, to the Department of Justice.
So you don't believe that banning the transfer of individuals into ICE custody for the purpose of civil immigration enforcement encourages illegal immigration into Chicago? Or how about agencies, or agents not being able to stop, arrest, or detain individuals based solely on their immigration status or administrative warrant?
So we comply with all laws, local, state, and federal.
To me, after this line of questioning, it's very clear that these policies that you have all implicated are active and alive and well in your cities, are in direct violation with U.S. Title 8 Code subsection 1324, and it is a federal offense. But you all speak about a broken immigration system, and yet here you guys are aiding and abetting in that entire process. I want to be very clear about something. Open border policies, which is something that you guys are talking about, hurts people on both sides, meaning the people that are coming here illegally and then American citizens as well. I do not think you guys are bad people, but I think that you are ideologically misled, which is why, unfortunately, based on your responses, I'm all going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation. And as soon as I leave here, these will be going over to Pam Bondi. I'm not doing that in an effort to bully you guys, but I do believe that your policies are hurting the American people, and you can make that known with the evidence that you can present to the Department of Justice. But if you guys continue doing what you're doing, you're not going to help anyone. You're going to hurt more people, and that's exactly why I'm tired of it. The American people are tired of it. And Chairman, I yield my time.
Abigail, I have a feeling you wouldn't have minded if Karen Bass from Los Angeles was on that panel and was maybe being looked into. I also liked Paulina's tone there. Like, the tone was right, you know? She didn't say this, it wasn't vengeful. It was, hey, I'm an American.
That is the tone to hit. The only group that these people seem not to have no empathy for is the American people. And honestly, it is hurting all of us. I'll just give you a funny anecdote. Recently I walked into a department store in LA. It was actually Ross Dress for Less. And I said to the manager, when was the last time someone shoplifted from this store? And he said to me, 15 minutes ago. Yeah. That's what life is like in California. Our laws are never enforced, and it hurts law-abiding citizens, and we're all sick of it.
It's Ross Dress for Less, not Ross Dress for Nothing. Clay, I know that's where you get most of your clothes, am I right?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly my wife doesn't trust me to dress myself. So we're about to go on spring break and she's telling me what I should pack. I do think that the quality of life aspects, I thought Paulina Luna handled that great. Look, I don't hate you. I just think you're misguided, and I think your philosophy of governance is wrong. And I think you can build on what Abigail pointed out. I'm stunned when I go to a blue city in a blue state, and you can't even buy toothpaste now, even in nice neighborhoods, without having somebody unlock it. Like, ultimately, what you're doing is destroying people's ability to work, right? Because the overall revenue is going down in addition to the thievery that requires it. And we all know how to fix this. We all know that if you arrest people and if you prosecute them, that criminal people who are choosing to make voluntary choices will adjust their behavior as a result. The entire purpose of having the criminal justice system in the first place is that people are predominantly rational and they understand that there will be consequences when they break the law. And for our immigration system, everyone, by and large, who is coming into this country is breaking the law. My favorite, you mentioned COVID earlier, Dave. You could walk across the southern border without a COVID shot, right? And come right into the country and start living. And they wouldn't let Novak Djokovic in the country to play tennis because he hadn't gotten the COVID shot. And I always wanted him to just kind of put his tennis rackets on his backpack and walk across the southern border just to make the case like, hey, I'm here for the U.S. Open. But instead of coming in on an airplane flight, not having the COVID shot, I just decided to walk across the southern border. And now I'm here and I don't have any restrictions at all. But this is just emblematic of different standards that we applied based on the way that people arrive. And all we're asking for is some semblance of basic reality.
And by the way, you're not joking about the way they've locked up these goods. I mean, go to any drugstore in New York City and literally everything from toothpaste to deodorant. Basically, you go to New York City and there's a guy standing on 48th and 7th and he's like, yo, you want some Crest White strips?
I always forget it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I have to wait for somebody to, who's stealing deodorant? Like, it's $3, $4, right? Like, who's buying it? The fact that we have this mass thievery has destroyed many of these businesses because the entire purpose of them is the convenience of buying a product easily.
Guys, let's talk about BHMD1 for a moment, and then we will end the show with various clips of general lunacy. We've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now, one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. They hardly make a dent on your appearance, and some can even be harmful to your skin, he said. Recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. It's almost like Photoshop for your face. You may even be mad after seeing how easy it is to visibly erase your wrinkles from view, Lake told reporters. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. You can find out more about this yourself right now. Go to bhmd1.com/Rubin or click the link in the description box below. That's bhmd1.com/Rubin. Again, go watch the video at bhmd1.com/Rubin right now, or just click the link in the description box below. All right, so Trump gave the big speech this week, and of course, the low light was Representative Al Green, who I just thought was a homeless pimp who got in there and started protesting with the cane and the screaming and the very poorly shaven face. Here, he was now censured by the Democrats because they do seem, a certain portion of them are doing this sort of weird pivot to the center, and they sang for him, the ones that were less pleased than that.
And that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
Just to be clear, so Mike Johnson, obviously the Republicans censored him. I think some of the Democrats went along with it. And it's just more of that, right? It's just more of like, okay, we're the victims. Like, come on, guys.
Well, remember, it wasn't very long ago, I think 2009, when a Republican congressman was censured for merely saying "you lie" during the Obama address, and everybody was in disbelief that it would ever happen. And now you got a guy with a cane literally standing in the well of the House trying to stop the president of the United States from addressing the nation. And somehow that's a direct attack on American representative democracy, such that you have to sing a civil rights anthem afterwards. I think, again, the average American is just aware that this is all BS and that really the Democrats have no real ideas, and their failure to stand for American heroism and just the honoring of people who have dealt with incredibly awful circumstances in the gallery, I think is emblematic of their inability to address some things on a basic human level. And it's why their party is collapsing right now and doesn't seem to have any true opposition to Trump.
Yeah, to clarify what I said, so 10 Democrats did actually vote to censure him. So that's the question, like how much momentum is there for these people that seem to want to, let's say, veer them back to the center. Abigail, I'm going to throw to a video of a woman, she's not in your district, but she is a congresswoman from Los Angeles, Maxine Waters. Now, she lives in Hancock Park, which is one of the most expensive zip codes in all of Los Angeles. However, that's not the district she represents, which is, let's say, less economically successful. Here she is going off on Elon.
Turned it over to him. And we don't know everything that Elon Musk has done with his high technology ass. We don't know what he's been accused of by some as it may relate to the election. But we're not going to give up in investigating and...
All right, first off, Elon absolutely should put high technology ass as his Twitter bio right now. But Abigail, I mean, suddenly you can question elections again. You can attack people's motives. There are other Democrats who are saying he should be sent back to South Africa. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk has a target on his back in that way because he's done something so unbelievably effective. Exposing the fraud and waste it's been a sickening display to see what was done with our money. I think that every American, whether they acknowledge it or not, feels that when they see this list of mumbo jumbo and phony garbage and leftist causes that our money was being sent to. It really has been a master stroke watching him go through and expose that. And I think it's really good politics. And I think that there's very little response to it. So I really hope, the administration can stay on message about that and not get, too showmany, because the actual what's being done is very, very good.
Let's keep rolling with the crazy. Here is Democrat Representative Steve Cohen in the halls of Congress being asked a fairly simple question, and it goes a little sideways.
Congressman, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
Congressman, why should men be in women's sports?
Shorts?
Sports. Why do you think
they should not be in shorts?
Clay, my main question there is, why is it that every time I go to Costco, I see people walk into Costco with using their legs, and suddenly they have to get in those little devices to walk around Costco? What's actually happening at Costco?
I actually understand it at Disney because it lets you cut to the front of the line.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you get an advantage at Costco and you don't have to wait in line, which can actually get pretty long. I don't know if they're outsmarting me or not. I will say that Congressman Steve Cohen, it is interesting that he was asked that question because he's the only Democrat congressman from the state of Tennessee. And do you know what district he represents by and large? The city of Memphis. And it is overwhelmingly made up of actually black voters. You know who definitely doesn't think that men should be playing in women's sports? Black dudes. Black dudes are not in agreement with the white guy in the rolling cart there about whether this should happen. And by the way, on Elon's front, he voted for Joe Biden and he voted for Hillary Clinton. He didn't endorse Donald Trump until July after the Butler assassination attempt. The attempt to try and make Elon Musk into some far right-wing South African apartheid supporting racist Hitlerite is one of the craziest moves of all time that they have attempted to put in place. To me, Elon seems eminently rational. And he views everything through the prism of, we got to make humans a multiplanetary species. What makes it more likely for us to get to Mars? And right now, he thinks a strong United States with a balanced budget, which doesn't seem crazy to me.
He was a lifelong Democrat until 2 years ago and a hero of the green-loving left and all of the rest of it. I don't have a segue for this one, so here's just Justin Trudeau crying.
On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future.
Abigail, I mostly showed that because watching Justin Trudeau cry makes me happy, but Ronald Reagan famously said that the 9 scariest words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." He's just the reverse of that. He is just the complete reverse of that. And I would also ask the Canadian truckers how they feel about how much he helped them.
That's exactly right. I mean, I don't know if he's been taking estrogen shots, but that was a disgraceful display and honestly kind of hard to watch. This man is not just a phony, but obviously has put into place some really damaging policies that have hurt women badly. And I'll just say, one thing I'm really happy about is watching, the African-American vote shift. And the reason that I care about that is because African-American young women were the ones hurt most very often by these new policies of putting men in their sports. You're talking about young women who got scholarships. Some of our best runners are African American. And we allowed young men to come in and just delete their records and take their trophies and take their scholarships. It was wrong. It was always wrong. And I'm really glad that Trump is responding to that.
All right, I have bludgeoned you good people with a lot of these crazy clips. We're gonna just end feeling good. That's how we're rolling into the weekend. I think this was the best moment from the big Trump speech on Tuesday night. This is him giving DJ Daniel, this is the big hug moment, you'll see.
What a good looking family, huh?
There's one more thing I got for you, a big hug.
Okay, good. That's very nice. Look at that family you got, huh?
Yes, sir.
Very nice. How are you? Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. That was a big evening last night, right?
Yes, it was.
That was a big evening.
So there was that hug in the White House. The big hug moment really to me was during the speech when he got the award and he hugged. I mean, if you didn't get chills during that, if you didn't feel something during that, as opposed to Nicole Wallace over on MSNBC, who went on a crazy tirade about it, it's like, at the end of the day, Clay, he just likes people, right? Like he just likes human beings.
The analogy I've made, and he reminds me of actually the parent that used to, that you would be in the house of. Buck and I interviewed him at Mar-a-Lago. We finished and he wouldn't let us leave. And he said, "You have to have the milkshakes here for your drive back to Miami. We have the best milkshakes at Mar-a-Lago." And it just reminded me of like the dad when I was a little leaguer, that's like, we got to go to Dairy Queen. You guys had a great game. Everybody's got to go get ice cream, right?
Yep.
I think what the American public has come to see is that the characterization of him as evil, you can disagree with him on some policy issues. That's normal in America. But the idea that this guy is Hitlerian in nature is just so fundamentally different than his actual persona that finally, at long last, it's blown up on Democrats and just doesn't work.
Now, everybody saw that the Democrats seemingly could not even applaud DJ Daniel at that big speech. 13-year-old kid who has received 13 surgeries for brain cancer. I mean, this kid is so absolutely unbelievable. So watch this just to end the week. This is just so absolutely wonderful.
Obviously, because I gave him a great note that says Donald Trump is the best president of the United States of America.
And why do you feel that way?
Because honestly, I honestly wanted to see Donald Trump in real life, and now it actually came true. And to my friends, I know one of my friends told me to say this to Donald Trump, but I didn't say it to him. So good luck, buddy.
Last thing, because we know you got to bounce. What would your one piece of advice for the Secret Service be?
Please stop being mean to President Trump, because if I see you being mean to him, I'm coming after you.
Hold up, I got one more thing to say. He has one more thing to say. I won't interrupt you.
If you're a Democrat and you're being mean to President Trump, I'm on your bumper. Well, really and truly, I'm not young. I'm a 50-year-old trapped in a 50-year-old body. I might look 13, but I'm 50.
I love that, and it sounds like you gotta go. Very nice to meet you.
DJ Daniels, so amazing.
I just
Absolutely
realized
incredible.
that that's the first
Thank
time I
you.
ever shook the woman's hand.
If you don't love that kid, if that does not bring warmth to your heart, I just don't even know what to say. Abigail, bring us home.
That was awesome, and it just reminds us of the things that matter most, and that is our kids, our future. We're not having enough kids in this country. We need to go back to forming families, having kids. Stop worrying about your Instagram. Go have some kids, and that was a beautiful moment.
Amen.
Abigail, Clay, you guys are the best. I thank you. Have a great
Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you,
and
guys.
normally we don't do post-game shows on Fridays, but we are doing one today because we did not do one yesterday. As I said, for reasons that would be so complex to explain, your head would explode. But we got a post-game show in 30 seconds, rubinreport.locals.com. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on Locals in just a moment. Ciao. All right, here I am in the Cannon Building in D.C. And what is that smell?
To ask the Ukrainians to help them cheat